1933. The United States. 1 in 4 people who wants to work can't find a job. Nearly 13 million people. Endless lines at charity soup kitchens. Entire families living in makeshift shacks. Fast forward to Spain, 2012. The financial crisis has hit with brutal force. General unemployment exceeds 25%. But among young people under 25, the figure is devastating, more than 50%. 1 in 2 young Spaniards can't find work. And now, March 2020. In a single week, more than 3 million Americans file for unemployment benefits. The following week, another 6 million. COVID triggers the fastest rise in unemployment in all recorded history. 3 moments. 3 crises. But unemployment isn't just a crisis phenomenon. It always exists. Even in the best economic times, there are people looking for work who can't find it. Why? In the previous episode, we learned to measure an economy's size with GDP. But GDP only tells us how much is produced. It doesn't tell us if people have jobs. And for most people, having or not having a job is what most affects their daily life. More than any macroeconomic data point. Today we're going to understand what unemployment really is, why it exists, and why there are different types with very different causes. Because not all unemployment is the same. And understanding the differences completely changes how you think about solutions. Before talking about types of unemployment, we need a clear definition. Because not everyone who isn't working is unemployed. For a person to count as unemployed in official statistics, they must meet 3 conditions. First, not have a job. Second, be actively looking for work. Third, be available to work. This leaves out a lot of people. A student not looking for work isn't unemployed. A retiree isn't unemployed. Someone who stopped looking because they believe they won't find anything doesn't show up as unemployed either, even though they'd like to work. These people are called discouraged workers, and they're invisible in the official rate. The unemployment rate is calculated by dividing the number of unemployed by the labor force. The labor force is everyone who's either working or looking for work. If a country has 20 million in the labor force and 1 million are unemployed, the rate is 5%. But that figure, like GDP, hides as much as it reveals. Imagine you leave your job because you found a better offer in another city. But the new company doesn't start you until next month. During those weeks, you're technically unemployed. Or imagine you've just graduated from university. You have your degree. You're looking for your first job. You haven't found the right one yet. You're also unemployed. This is frictional unemployment. The unemployment that exists because matching workers with jobs takes time. Jobs aren't all the same. Workers aren't all the same. Finding the right fit requires searching, interviews, negotiation, sometimes relocating. Frictional unemployment isn't a problem. In fact, it's a sign of a healthy labor market. It means people can afford to search for a job that truly suits them, rather than accepting the first thing that comes along. A world without frictional unemployment would be one where nobody changes jobs, where nobody looks for something better. This is different. And much more painful. Think of the Rust Belt in the United States. For decades, cities like Detroit, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh were the country's industrial heartland. They made steel, cars, machinery. Millions of families lived off those factories. But starting in the 80s, production began moving. First to southern states with lower labor costs. Then to Mexico. Then to China. The factories closed. And the workers left behind had skills nobody needed anymore. They knew how to make steel, but the new industries wanted programmers, lab technicians, logistics specialists. This is structural unemployment. It occurs when there's a mismatch between the skills workers have and the skills the market demands. It's not that there are no jobs. It's that the available jobs require something the unemployed can't offer. At least not immediately. Structural unemployment can come from technology, when machines replace workers. It can come from globalization, when production moves to lower-cost countries. It can come from changes in demand, when consumers stop wanting what an industry produces. It's slow, deep unemployment that's difficult to solve. Waiting for the economy to improve isn't enough. It requires retraining, investment in education, sometimes the complete reinvention of entire regions. This is the type of unemployment that rises in recessions and falls during expansions. It's directly tied to the business cycle. When the economy contracts, firms sell less. If they sell less, they need fewer workers. They lay people off. Unemployment rises. When the economy recovers, firms sell more. They need more hands. They hire. Unemployment falls. Cyclical unemployment is what governments and central banks try to fight with their economic policy tools. lowering interest rates, increasing public spending, injecting money into the economy. All aim to stimulate activity so firms start hiring again. The Great Depression of the 30s was an extreme case of cyclical unemployment. The 2008 crisis, another. The 2020 pandemic, yet another, though with unique characteristics since the shutdown was deliberate, not the product of a market failure. In 1967, Milton Friedman and almost simultaneously Edmund Phelps introduced a concept that changed macroeconomics: the natural rate of unemployment. The idea is this: even when the economy is running at full capacity, there will always be some frictional and some structural unemployment. There will always be people changing jobs, young people looking for their first one, sectors transforming. That baseline rate, what remains when you strip out the cyclical component, is the natural rate. In most developed economies, it falls between 3 and 6%, depending on labor market flexibility, the quality of training, and employment policies. Full employment doesn't mean zero unemployment. It means zero cyclical unemployment. That everyone who wants to work and has the right skills can find a job within a reasonable time. This is important because it implies that trying to push unemployment below its natural rate can create other problems. Like inflation. That relationship between unemployment and inflation is one we'll explore in detail later this season. The official unemployment rate leaves out two important realities. The first is underemployment. People who have a job but less than they'd want. The waiter who works only 10 hours a week when they'd want 40. The engineer working as a cashier because they can't find a position in their field. Technically, these people are employed. But their situation is far from satisfactory. The second is the labor force participation rate. The percentage of working-age people who are in the labor force either working or looking for work. When this rate drops, it can mean lots of people have given up searching. They've stopped trying. And by leaving the labor force, they disappear from the unemployment rate. A country can have a low unemployment rate and, at the same time, millions of people who neither work nor look for work. The numbers don't lie, but they tell only part of the story. Unemployment isn't just a number. It's a human experience with profound consequences. Medical research shows that prolonged unemployment increases the risk of depression, anxiety, cardiovascular disease, and substance abuse. Studies also find that children of unemployed parents have worse academic outcomes and lower lifetime earnings. But the consequences go beyond the individual. When unemployment concentrates in a geographic area, as happened in the Rust Belt, entire communities deteriorate. Local businesses close because people have no money to spend. Young people leave. Public services degrade. The social fabric phrase. Spain lived through it after 2008. An entire generation of well-educated young people had to choose between emigrating or accepting jobs far below their qualifications. They called it the lost generation. And the effects of that crisis are still felt years later. Economic migration is also part of this story. When there's no work at home, people move. It's always been that way. And migration flows generate complex effects both in countries that lose workers and in those that receive them. Unemployment is not an abstract data point. It's neighbors losing their homes. Families breaking apart. Towns emptying. Any serious discussion about economics has to start there. Let's review the essentials. First, to count as unemployed, you must not have a job, be actively searching, and be available. The unemployment rate is calculated against the labor force. Second, there are three types of unemployment. Frictional is natural and healthy, people between jobs. Structural is a mismatch between skills and demand, and it's painful. Cyclical rises and falls with the economy. Third, the natural rate of unemployment is the sum of frictional and structural. Full employment doesn't mean zero unemployment, it means zero cyclical unemployment. Fourth, the official rate doesn't capture everything. Underemployment and falling labor force participation reveal problems the headline number doesn't show. Unemployment rises and falls in waves. But it's not random. It follows a pattern. Economies expand, hit a peak, contract, and recover. Again and again. Economists call this the business cycle. And understanding it is the key to grasping everything from recessions to government policy. That's in the next episode.